Starting with our top story that we are tracking for you, Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharman has presented India's first paperless pandemic-era budget, a budget prepared under the pressing and uncharted circumstances.
Speaker, I present the budget for the year 2021-2022. As introduction, Honourable Speaker, the preparation of this budget was undertaken in circumstances like never before. We knew of calamities that have affected a country or a region within a country. But what we have endured with COVID-19 through 2020 is sui generis. When I presented the budget 2020-2021, we could not have imagined that the global economy, already in throes of a slowdown, would be pushed into an unprecedented contraction. We could not have also imagined then that our people, as those in other countries, would have to endure the loss of near and dear ones and suffer hardships brought about due to a health crisis.
As expected, there was a huge emphasis on health and welfare. The health budget outlay was increased by 137% to rupees 1.83 lakh crores. Now, this includes around 35,000 crores for India's COVID vaccine drive. The Finance Minister said that at least 2 or more India-made vaccines are in the pipeline.
The pneumococcal vaccine, a made-in-India product, is presently limited to only 5 states. It will be rolled out across the country. This will avert more than 50,000 child deaths annually. Honourable Speaker, I have provided 35,000 crores of rupees for COVID-19 vaccine in this year 21-22. I am committed to provide further funds if required.
The government has pegged the fiscal deficit at 9.5%, but expects to bring it below 4.5% by the financial year 2026. On FDI, India has raised the limit in insurance sector from 49% to 74%, and the move will help increase capital inflow in insurance companies and enhance their expansion and growth.
I propose to amend the Insurance Act 1938 to increase the permissible FDI limit from 49% to 74% in insurance companies and allow foreign ownership and control with safeguards. Under the new structure, the majority of directors on the board and key management persons would be resident Indians, with at least 50% of directors being independent directors, and specified percentage of profits being retained as general reserve. Stressed asset resolution by setting up a new structure.
Co-founder and Managing Director of Hiranandani Group and past President of Assocham, Niranjan Hiranandani, is joining us live from Mumbai to help us to understand and unpack this budget further. Thank you for being with us on this broadcast. Now,
my pleasure.
Great to have you. Now, economic recovery and growth, domestic demand, creating jobs and employment, and reforms in the banking sector. These were some of the big challenges and points of focus. How do you think this budget does in addressing these concerns?
2 things stand out tremendously, and that is that the expenditure under the budget has been increased very largely in segments like health, infrastructure, development, defense, housing, and other sectors of the economy. We were expecting that there would be an increase on the taxation side. Fortunately for us, they have not tinkered too much on the taxation side, and they have done more on the disinvestment policy, wherein the banks, insurance companies and other areas would be sold off, or put into the market, like the Life Insurance Corporation of India would be having an IPO where they would hold only 25%, where the government presently owns 100%. So I think the balancing of the budget has been quite unique, which I was not expecting, and it has been done in a very challenging sort of way. The second important thing which I think the budget did was to see that the target of investments into infra of the country should be done in spite of all the other views, which was to be more conservative in this segment. So I think that challenge has been met, and roads, ports, railways, sectors, airports, all these investments have been multiplied and done probably at an extraordinary number. And I think this couple of these moves are definitely going to change the -7% GDP growth into a +10% or 11% GDP growth, depending on what the assessment is look like. So I think this positive direction in which they have taken the budget has been quite unique, which I've never seen before, in a very aggressive sort of way and still working on the policy. Of course, there is a challenge. Many of these are reformist type of movements, and the Prime Minister will have to push it through, which is not so easy today to do after the farmers' agitation. But I think in view of the fact that these are clear-cut mandates which have been put across, and they're not affecting the general run of people, I think these reform positions will also go through very quickly.
Go back to infrastructure and the farmers' significant portion of the budget, but let's start with the strengthening of the health infrastructure. This was, of course, one of the major topics, and boosting the COVID vaccine drive. Sitharman has announced a total spending of a huge amount of 2 lakh crore rupees on healthcare and 35,000 crore on the COVID vaccine development and inoculations, so the biggest, second biggest population in the world. How do you view this announcement regarding healthcare? Do you feel that this is enough?
Nothing is ever going to be enough. India is a very large country with a huge population. If we have to compare it with the Western world, obviously it's not enough. But looking at the situation today, the kind of increase which has been shown, which is almost 1,000% of what it was originally, I think the growth of this sector in terms of health is going. And second, when you try to build up infrastructure in the health sector, it does take time. I don't think you can put it up overnight. Because you not only want the buildings and other infrastructure or surgical equipment, you also need doctors, nurses, and other people and healthcare workers to really support and man it. So I think it will be a progressive issue that they are going to do over a period of years. I think those are the issues which will be there. But the beginning from the tackling of the virus, getting the vaccines to the people is fully covered. Already India is amongst the best, one of the good countries where they have been able to manage to handle COVID-19 spread and also be able to contain it even in worst areas. Look at it, Dharavi, one of the most congested places on earth. We have the last 1 week, we had 0 new COVID cases. So all this is a magic thing which has happened in terms of the COVID situation. And it's quite a miraculous thing, which I didn't possibly think that it was easy to handle. And you have seen what has happened in the Western world, where all the moves, in spite of such good healthcare systems and facilities, we've been able to do it. I think the leadership and healthcare system has really stood up the test of time, though we are a very poor country in terms of the size and scale of health infrastructure.
Absolutely superseding expectations in a lot of fronts there. Naranjan, how do you view the announcements made under the Atmanirbhar Bharat, the self-reliant India? Has there been enough of a boost given to the Make in India initiative in this budget?
It's a very, very challenging thought. I mean, the very fact of announcement really came up in 2 ways. One, that we have tackled a $5 trillion economy in 5 years, And that's a target which the Prime Minister wants to achieve, which means that we need to have a minimum double-digit growth in GDP year after year, compounded for the next 5 years, and then also we will marginally meet the target. But in order to do so, Atmanirbhar Bharat became a slogan which became necessary. But the Prime Minister has fully clarified the issue that it does not mean India isolating from the rest of the world. It means self-sufficiency in terms of strategic items that needs to be done for the country. And it also means that we will become also an export-led country over a period of time. The vaccines have been one of the stories which are there, which we have now started exporting to the other neighboring countries, including Pakistan, I heard today. So I think all these things are really something which will bring about a position of change into the country. It's challenging, difficult, but not impossible. And I think the Prime Minister wants to achieve this target very quickly.
Right. Now, moving on to the next thing, keeping in mind the recent farmers' protests, are you satisfied with the announcements made on agriculture, considering the amount put aside in the budget? Do you think this occupied is enough of a significant portion of the budget? Will this go far enough to help to support this important sector?
I think the budget has provided enough for agriculture. But it's not about the budget. The reform process which are there is a fear in a segment of the society that they will be deprived of something in the future years. I don't think the farmers are worried whatsoever about the present situation of subsidy in terms of the MSP, which is there for the products which they are getting. But they want this to be legislated in such a manner by which they are guaranteed this in perpetuity. I don't think the government is ready to do that, partly because there are other states in the country which have accepted the new laws very correctly. So the question is, how do we deal with the situation where some part of the country is in favor of it and other is not? India is a federal structure, and I think we need to find out a method wherein we can bifurcate this law in such a manner that it may not be applicable to all the states, and the states should actually take up the ratification of each of these. Of course, agriculture is on the concurrent list, so I think we'll have to find out a way in order to sort out these issues amicably. But what is worrisome is not the farmers' protest and others. What is worrisome is that we should not get stuck with other reforms. And second, my belief is it's not the law which is creating a problem. I think it's a lack of communication which was not adequately followed up when this law was passed. I think the farmers felt petrified that this law was against them when it was not. But not enough communication was done with this lobby in order to convince them that it was not against them. So I think the other people were able to convince them better that in reality this is not a good law for them. And there is a fear in the minds of the farmers' lobby, farmers themselves, that they would be deprived in the future. So that's a challenge. But I don't think it will affect the other reforms. But the communication link has to be reinforced better than before.
Niranjan, before I let you go, I just want to touch on FDI. India has raised the limit in the insurance sector from 49% to 74%. Do you think this move and other such moves in the budget go far enough in creating good foreign direct investment in the country?
Well, this was what the foreign direct investors people had asked for from the government, and they've got it all. So I don't see any reason why they should not be happy about the whole situation. So I think you'll get a lot of investors coming into it. And fortunately for the insurance companies, India is a very low insured country. So I think the scope of growth in this country is huge. And any insurance company which doesn't take up this opportunity would be foolish, because I don't think you will get an opportunity like this again in India ever. So big, it's unbelievable. Less than 5% of the total population in the country is insured today. So can you imagine? We have 95% yet to go. So the sky is the limit. So I think the insurance investors into this sector should actually lap it up as quickly as possible and take this thing. I don't know whether the government is also going to give away the Indian government-owned insurance companies. But since the scope is so large, both could coexist.
Niranjan, thank you very much for bringing us all the latest analysis on that budget.